Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Friday, March the 15th. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by a full-strength Rangers Review squad to look back on last night's frustrating evening at Ibrox. First of all, Joshua Barry, how's it going, Joshua?
Yeah, good, Derek. Obviously not the normal late European game at Ibrox, so we're not back and working until the early hours. But yeah, frustrating one, as you say, for Rangers last night. Looking forward to getting into it. We obviously spoke about it briefly towards the end of the game, but an opportunity to look at it in more detail and then obviously look ahead to an even bigger game, which is Dundee on Sunday.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. Vital that Rangers get back to winning ways. Chris, was a late one last night. Bit of we'll get stuck into the game in more detail, of course, but just a frustrating one all round.
I think that frustrating word is one that's going to come up quite a lot over the next half hour or so. It's one that's come up in quite a lot of the conversations I've had since the game last night. I think that sums it up for Rangers. It was a tie they weren't expected to win. It's a tie they weren't favourites to win. But when you look back at it, it's a tie that they could very easily have won. And I think that will be the main feeling. The manager was asked last night, is it an opportunity missed? He didn't say yes. He didn't really go into it. But I think when you look at how the two games unfolded, it certainly has to fall into that category for Rangers. That's not saying Benfica were there for the taking, but I think against a good side, Rangers had enough about them to emerge victorious over the two legs. So frustrating very much sums it up for me.
Yep, absolutely. But let's dive into it. Before we do that, just a quick word for the podcast sponsors, MPH Group. If you're looking for some home improvements, folks, these are the guys to call. The all-important links are in the description below. And just a bit of admin, I noticed that Liam has got in touch here. Hi, guys, I'm a subscriber, but my name is grey on the side. Any ideas how to fix it? Not too sure what you mean, Liam, but message Joshua if you're on Twitter or the likes. Drop us a message or on the Rangers Review Twitter account, and we'll look into that for you. Not entirely sure what you mean there, but I will try and rectify that for you. Right, let's talk about the game. Me and you were on last night, Joshua. Ibrox on the full-time whistle. Rangers going out, courtesy of a Rafa Silva goal in that second half, narrowly losing to Benfica. Rangers having a lot of the ball last night, but they just couldn't. They're just lacking that little bit of quality in the final third. The goal itself was a bit of a disaster, in all honesty. It came from a Rangers corner. Corners last night, again, were pretty dismal. Benfica were able to clear the ball downfield after Cyril Dessers. Seen him come in for a bit of criticism last night. He's trying to turn into traffic, heavily congested penalty area as opposed to laying the ball off. I think John Lundstrom was on the edge of the area, but Benfica were able to go up the park. The boy's been played in. He's in his own half, despite being flagged offside once he fired past Jack Butland. VAR checked it. He was on, and Rangers were unable to respond and exit the competition at the last 16 stage. Joshua, you've time to reflect on the game. As Chris touched on, there was a bit of a missed opportunity.
Yeah, we'll get into the goal specifically, Derek, and Dessers, because I think they're two big talking points. I think you can call it missed opportunity while also recognising maybe a bit of a step too far, because Chris is right. It's too simple to say Benfica were there for the taking. But I think Rangers have beaten better sides on the night in Europe in recent years. The difficulty with Benfica was all that individual quality that, as we saw for the goal, they only needed one mistake that ended up coming in their own penalty box almost to go up and score the other side. Will people in hindsight look and think, do you know what? Clement has routinely changed the starting 11. He did an interview with TNT Sports before the game where he was asked, you're having to rely on the same players. And he said, actually, if you look at the attack, we've changed a lot. But the only change he's made to that starting 11 over the last 3 games is Dujon Sterling out for Scott Wright last night, Derek, and that was enforced by injury. That alone, given how much he has changed his team, given that he could only bring Cantwell and Ruth off the bench for, what was it, Chris, about 20 minutes. It was a kind of a set period of time before the game. Shows that they were working within their limitations, and Clement has got more out of them so far. As we discussed last night, Derek, I think because Benfica sat off the game quite a lot and Rangers didn't have that natural width, they struggled to really build momentum with the ball, even though they kept a lot of the ball. I agree with probably what a lot of people felt, which was that because Dessers wasn't able to really hold the ball up, that's not his game. And Antonio Silva was winning everything in the air. He's only 20 or 21, but he's a centre-back that's going to probably go and play in the Premier League in the next couple of years for a reason. So I think that just limited how Rangers could build attacks quickly and build momentum, which is why for a lot of the game it felt pretty slow. So yeah, I don't think that necessarily Clement had all the options to work with, but he's not had that for really the whole duration of his time at the club. The difference was last night, it's a top quality opponent, small margins. Ultimately, Rangers lose that tie with a goal that's so narrowly onside, an own goal and a penalty kick. Just didn't quite have enough over the next over the two ties, and it'll frustrate them, especially because of how well they played over in Lisbon. Will be seen as a bit of a missed opportunity because they could have went through in the night, but also I think there needs to be a reality that you are going up against a much better resourced opponent who have their squad in a much fitter state. Rangers do not, and I think the last half hour in Lisbon and the last half hour last night there, that showed Rangers didn't quite have enough to maybe take advantage of the game state and the situation that the game was in, even though it maybe was there to go and get a little bit more out of.
Yeah, they look dead on their feet, to be honest. And of course, injuries don't help either. Point from Ian McPhee, it says, let's be totally honest, we haven't got the personnel to compete in the latter stages. Look at the Liverpool score. I certainly feel as if Rangers had certain players available, Ian. They would have had a right good shot of going through last night. Chris, I thought Dujon Sterling was a big miss for Rangers last night. There are others, of course, in the attacking areas that you can rightly point at. But for me, Rangers certainly missed his endeavour and industry last night. His physicality to get up and down the pitch, he was a big miss for me.
I think it just felt like one European game too far for this squad almost. I think what they've put in, both in European terms and domestically over the last few months, the international break now can't come quick enough. Need to get through Dundee, no damage done, and then get a well-earned break and try and rest, recuperate, recover ahead of the final part of the season. I think if Rangers had a full strength squad last night, it would have been a very different game, and I think potentially a different outcome if you can start Cantwell rather than bringing them on for the last 20 minutes. If you have someone like Cortez, gives you a different option, allows you to move Silva perhaps into the number 9 role. Didn't think Dessers had a great game that moment outside the Benfica goal aside. If you have Sima, makes such a huge difference. So these guys are a massive loss to the squad. But we know that. We just have to get on with it. We just have to deal with it. There's nothing we can do about it. It's not an excuse, because at Rangers you don't get excuses. You have to go and win the games regardless of who's there. The manager didn't seek to use it as an excuse, but you mentioned like Sterling there, Derek. If he's available, if the guys that I just spoke about there are available, it's a very different two legs. And I think potentially it's a different outcome. Rangers ultimately just didn't have the quality in some areas and didn't have the legs in other areas. And I think that the schedule and the situation just a bit kind of caught up with them last night.
Yep, the point that came in, which I totally agree, just on Sterling. Jamie says, we need more than Sterling back. We need people with more cutting edge. Totally agree. Dessers, as you said, Chris, never had his best of games last night. He is what he is, Joshua. I've seen the goal last night. He runs into traffic when a layoff to the likes of Lundstrom would have been a better option. The ball just doesn't stick up top when he's playing up front. He's not the answer for Rangers. There is concerns, and I think rightly concerns, that Rangers may not have enough firepower for the games ahead domestically. What's your feeling on that one? Another disappointing showing from him last night.
Generally, when Dessers' best games, I think, come when Rangers dominate the territory. So you think of, I know that's easier to say maybe because they have more chances, but if you think of Hearts at home and Ross County at home as of late, and a large reason for that perhaps is because he doesn't quite have the pace over long distances to get in behind. Don't think there's anything new there. You remember the game Derek away at who was it Rangers played? Sparta Prague away, where he didn't have a sniff all night. That is not his game. He's not suited to holding the ball up or chasing the ball over long distances. I think his game is suited to that movement over short distances when he can go in behind the defence. Last night is a game that you probably look in hindsight and think, you know what, Fabio Silva in a central position probably gives us a bit more of a running threat, a bit more of a hold-up option. But obviously Clement, as Chris rightly says, Clement doesn't have that option. So it's kind of a futile argument because there wasn't the opportunity to play him in the centre, because then who plays out on the left side? You've obviously got Scott Wright that comes in on the other flank. Ross McCausland not really fit enough to play much of a part. So I don't think we learn anything new. In games, Dessers will score goals, I think, domestically for you in games where you have a lot of the territory and defences are pinned back and he keeps going. But is he going to be the striker to take you to another level? Is he going to be the striker in the big games is the question, because I think aside from, he obviously scored that Betis goal away at Betis, but the two Old Firm games stand out as games where he's not made the desired impact. So you look ahead to that and you think, if Rangers can get a Sima back on the left-hand side, I'd be inclined to play Fabio Silva centrally, because while the question will go on about his best position, I agree with what Chris wrote earlier this week. You want him in he's a good player. He's just a really good player, and you want him in your starting 11 more often than not, even if he didn't have a good game last night. So didn't learn all that much new, I don't think, about Dessers. The goal in isolation, Derek, we're going to have an article looking at it in more detail, because obviously it's quite a big talking point. If you look at the corner immediately before that, the ball is laid off quickly to Lundstrom, and he has a shot which goes just over the crossbar. There's slight differences in the way that Benfica set up from corners. They did keep one man back. The reason I think the Rangers pushed all their men forward is purely because Benfica had 11 men inside the box, and you obviously want to try and retain pressure instead of conceding territory. But as we'll come on to look at in the article, Diomande doesn't track his runner. Ridvan's probably a bit wide. But I think that the root issue of that is that, as you say, Dessers is trying to he's trying to chop and turn inside the box when there's just not the space to do that. If he plays a pass back to Lundstrom, that doesn't happen. And actually, if you look at Lundstrom's position, he moves away from his man because he's anticipating that kind of layoff. So there was a number of mistakes in the goal. I don't think Dessers had a good night all round. Not only for the goal, but Rangers didn't have that option of going directly over the top. And if they have the option of maybe trying to get someone on Otamendi, it changes the tone of the game. It pushes Benfica back. And that's something that we've seen Clement's team do a lot, turn defences, attack directly. They didn't have the opportunity to do that. And I don't think that allowed them to really build the momentum that kind of occasion, a Thursday night at Ibrox in the Europa League, what we've tended to see from them in recent seasons.
Yeah, just on the goal and Rangers set up at corners, the manager was asked about that last night in his press conference. The question was, were you exposed from your corner kicks? And he said that because they have a lot of quality, that's one thing. And the goal we got against us, we make the wrong decision. I don't think they created a lot of chances out of that. We also had a counter-attack in the first half on set pieces. This issue on corners, Chris. Now, the manager deserves a lot of credit for the work he has done with this team to get to this stage. He's worked wonders really to get them to this point. However, the issue of corners is one that has fans tearing their hair out. It seems to be after every game. The corners are not good enough. There's not enough invention in them. And last night they were pretty dismal. I mean, it was there's amateur teams with more invention with their corner kicks than what Rangers have. They need to work on this more, don't they?
It's something that I think it's not just this season that has infuriated fans. I think it goes back a couple of seasons,
right.
And it does seem like, where is as you mentioned, that word invention there? Where is it? Now, where's the creativity? Where's the trying something different than just getting a fullback to take over, put in an outswinger that invariably the centre halves don't win, and before you know it, you've turned a promising attacking situation into one where you're on the back foot. Now, not every team is going to score a goal like Benfica did last night. As poor as it was from a Rangers perspective, if you're Roger Schmidt, you're thinking, well, we've won the ball in our own area, we've cleared it quickly, incisive move. The run has been timed to perfection, just inside his own half, got up the pitch, and it's accomplished, finished. If you're Benfica, you're really happy with that. If you're Rangers, you have to be tearing your hair out at it because it's just such a soft goal to lose. I think if you look at the tie overall, it's poor goals from Rangers to lose all the way. I know the manager has mentioned the Suter handball and why it shouldn't have been a penalty over the last couple of days. It's a bit unfortunate in there. But second goal in Benfica, or in the first leg, sorry, so avoidable. One last night, so avoidable. And when it comes from what should be a promising attacking situation for Rangers, you can understand why the fans are upset about it. It's just you're sending the fullback over, you're putting these crosses in, 9 times out of 10, they're not winning them. There's then very little to try and win the second ball, and it just doesn't work. I don't understand what Rangers think they're going to achieve with these outswinging corners. And it's not to say there's guys in the squad who should go and win every single header. It's not a hugely physical Rangers side, but there's still a couple of them that you would think should be capable of going and getting their head on an effort. I think, as we said last week, ironically, the one that Goldson scores last week, that's the type of thing that he should be doing. And another area, how many times have we seen him this season? Get on the end of them and just not threaten the goalkeeper at all. So it is, I think it's an area that has to be worked on, whether that's the manager and the current coaching staff coming up with something, whether that's the players taking it upon themselves to maybe try out some different routines and try and vary it a wee bit, or whether that's bringing in someone who is a bit more specialised in that area, because it is an area that it's cheap goals to potentially score, very, very cheap goals if you lose them.
Yeah, we'll come to you shortly, Joshua, on that. A few comments coming in. Maka says, Big Phil is not a believer in a set-piece coach. We need to address that. And Ian Edwards with a point as well. The amount of corners we get domestically, we should probably be scoring at least a goal a game from corners. So it's 2 valid points, I think. Listen, I think the manager, was asked about this a couple of weeks ago, about the corners. He says that he likes taking those sort of drills himself. Now, I know it's not the most exciting thing to do, to practice corners on the training pitch, Joshua, but practice makes perfect. The more work you do on the training pitch, you'll get your rewards on the football pitch, and it looks like Rangers are not doing enough.
I'm somewhere in the middle on this. Last night, there was the first corner Rangers took, which was actually quite a nice routine, which Tom Lawrence had that low shot, and it was actually quite unlucky. I don't think it's as bad as the general consensus is, while I'd still do agree, as we'll touch on in this article today, that there could be more invention, a bit more in the way of routine. You know, obviously, what everyone looks at the top clubs doing at Man City at the weekend against Liverpool with that kind of near post corner that makes such a difference. I've not got these stats on the screen, Derek, but just to read them out. Rangers, their set piece expected goals. So that's just the value of chance they're generating on average from set pieces every single game. This season is 0.42, which is 0. And Celtic's is 0.45. So they're marginally behind Celtic. Last year in the league, Rangers scored 20 set-piece goals and they were averaging 0.41 XG from corners. And Rangers are still creating the most shots, which is, let me just get that up, set-piece shots, which is 5.14 shots from corners per game in the league. So I agree that you don't look, I think, at Rangers at the moment when they get a corner and think, oh, this is going to be dangerous. If you contrast that to maybe the Livingston game at Ibrox, where they were just taking in swingers, but they're putting them right on top of the goalkeeper, and then that is a game that springs to my memory where you did start to think, okay, they're maybe going to score from one of these. So I do agree that on the eye, and it's the eye and the data you've got to kind of put together for this. On the eye, Rangers don't, when they get corners, you don't think they look really threatening. But equally, it's not, their chance creation is actually a tiny bit better than last season when their set pieces were good and probably more inventive. And they scored 20 set piece goals, which does include direct free kicks. So maybe 14, 15 from corners and then direct free kicks. So I don't think it's quite as bad on a pure chance creation basis as people are making out. I think last night is frustrating, and there is an argument to say, should you just keep Red Van Dieper instead of the position that he was in, as we'll kind of go on to explore in this article. But with all that said, with the data still showing, I think that Rangers are a little bit better than they're being given credit for. I do agree that when you watch them, you're not thinking this is really threatening at the moment, and you probably do want more variation. Whether it just is you're mixing up your in-swingers and your out-swingers as a very basic thing.
Yeah.
Like what the point would be, you're trying, ironically, in comparison to last night, you're trying to not concede those transitions, which obviously Rangers weren't able to do. And it is interesting, again, we'll cover this in the article, Benfica did, I wonder if they kind of picked that up at halftime or if they learned throughout the game, because if you look at Di Maria and Rafa Silva, when that corner comes out, they're not really worried about the edge of the box. They seem to be more thinking, we're going to take a gamble here and we're going to take a risk and try and go for it. So that's what I think about set pieces. Statistically, not quite as bad as people are making out. agree in the eye test it could be more dangerous because we know how important they are. And it could be a set piece or two that is the difference between Rangers winning the league or not. And the frustration will be that Goldson's own goal comes from a indirect free kick, doesn't it? Souttar's comes from a corner, but I thought Rangers generally defended direct corners pretty well over in Lisbon. And obviously last night, the whether it's a mistake, as Clement said, or something structural, as we're looking at it from the outside, a really frustrating place to concede a goal from, not least because from an attacking corner, obviously you're the ones who should be trying to score.
Yeah, it sums up Rangers corners for me. Chaparuni says, statistically, more shots come from outswingers, more likely to score from inswingers. Listen, changing it up to outswingers and inswingers is one thing. I want to see short corners, training ground routines, just more invention, because I know when Rangers, when they were getting corners last night, there was a bit of a cheer at Ibrox, but I don't know why, because the conversion rate is so low, it defies belief. Another thing, I want to come back to you, Joshua. I mean, one of the criticisms leveled last night was that Rangers were all-out attack at these set pieces. Even though Ali McCoy on commentary last night on TNT was saying as such as well, Rangers pushing everyone up for these corners. Did that surprise you?
Not too much, because again, you see a lot of teams do that down south, and Benfica have 11 players in their own penalty box. So I guess to weigh up the pros and cons of that, let's say hypothetically that Benfica, let's say hypothetically Rangers concede that same goal, but you've got Ridvan at the halfway line and you've got two players at the edge of the box. And maybe you've then got, so it was Rafa Silva, Di Maria, and one more player whose name escapes me, I can't remember who it was, kind of breaking out the edge of the box. If Benfica then have a 3v2 in that situation, you're probably saying, well, why is Ridvan back there? Why is he deep conceding space when he could have tried to stop the attack at source? So I need to watch them all back to, I think, to kind of cement my opinion, if you will, Derek. I think it was adventurous. I think that's what you want. Probably people want to see in a sense from a team at home. You contrast that to Benfica's approach, and Benfica sat off the game quite a lot last night.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
maybe only attacked with 8
I think they were expecting Rangers to go full blown and then pound them basically.
And a lot of the I think at the game last night, a lot of the issue for Rangers, the reason they couldn't do that, is they weren't really able to go direct because they didn't have a high and wide threat on the right hand side. Didn't have like a Dujon Sterling. Scotty was actually quite narrow because he's not got the explosiveness to be out in the touchline and go past his man. He's better in the central areas, I think. So you've not got that. You can't really get James Tavernier high because Benfica are keeping their wing backs high. Their wingers high. So you've got to guard against that threat. As we've already discussed, the ball wasn't sticking at Desser's feet, nor was he able to turn. And maybe you could have said, okay, Rangers should have went a bit more direct and competed for second balls, but then are they throwing up too much control? So it just felt like a bit of a strange game where both teams were feeling one another out for so long, and there was real lulls within it. It was obviously something that didn't come off for them, but Clement, as he said in his press conference, he probably thinks the issue is not tracking runners. I think the bigger issue there is that if you look at where Lundstrom is, he's presuming that ball is going to come back from Dessers, and in that second and a half that Dessers has got the ball, Benfica are gradually edging forward. And what is, as you're right to say, Derek, a risky tactic. If you're playing that type of risky tactic, you probably can't take risks in that situation yourself. No. The corner before the ball got out quickly to Lundstrom and he'd taken a shot. This time the ball doesn't come quickly to Lundstrom. The runners aren't properly tracked, probably by Ridvan and Diomande, and the rest allows Rafa Silva to get up the pitch and score.
Yeah. Right, let's get to a few comments before we crack on looking at the game on Sunday. Bill Browning says, morning troops from a depressing Lisbon. As the Portuguese press said today, those who don't kill die. It sums it up perfectly. It certainly does, Bill. Tam Brown with the point, is there a presser today before Dundee? No, I think that they carried out at the tail end of last night's press conference, Tam. And Maka quite rightly says, remember, we've got a game on Sunday to discuss, Derek. We absolutely do, Chris. There's no time for Rangers to feel sorry for themselves. An absolutely huge game coming up at Dens Park on Sunday. Got to say I'm slightly concerned with this game because Rangers looked shattered last night. I'm hoping that perhaps, I'd imagine Todd Cantwell will be staking a claim to start that game. I'd be even inclined to perhaps start Kemar Roof if he's fit enough. But Rangers simply have to get the victory by hook or by crook, and then go into that international break and recover, get in the cryo chamber, and get ready for the final stint towards the league title?
No press conference today, as you say, Derek. The manager did speak in an embargo section last night, and that'll be out in a couple of hours, both on the website and on the YouTube channel. Interesting update on Abdallah Sima in there, so something for if the fans to keep an eye out on. But as you say, it's now all attention's on Dens Park on Sunday. Hopefully there's no road traffic accidents this time. Hopefully there's no fireworks and flares and no delays this time. I've already outstayed my welcome in Dens Park this season, so I'm looking for a far more straightforward occasion this time around. But certainly the same sort of performance and result would be great. It's just all about 3 points on Sunday for Rangers. They need to find a way to get through the game, and this, as I said earlier on, this international break now just gives them a chance to calm down, regroup, reset. Hopefully, try and get some of the injured boys back. Try and work on the fitness of the guys that are coming back, like Cantwell. And it's just I think this international break, it's been on the horizon for a while. People almost get ticking the games off until we get to it. Once we come back from this, it's all systems go. It's every game is huge. Pressure ramps up every game. Also in terms of Premiership title, Scottish Cup semi-final is now looming large as well. So it's going to be an exciting end to the season for Rangers. But it's a huge thing for them to go into that break, top of the league, on the back of another win. If there's another performance in there, great, but if it's a scrappy 1-0, I'll take it all day long.
Yep, the manager was asked, can it still be a memorable season last night? He says, I think it's already been a memorable season. How long ago did Rangers last win the League Cup? We're hungry for the 2 other trophies. We're going to stick together, work really hard to focus on those 2 goals. I've read a lot of times the last couple of weeks that it was maybe better that we're not in Europe anymore. I didn't agree. I told you, and I still don't agree, but we're now focusing on the 2 other trophies. This is a massive game, Joshua. With that in mind, and given the efforts that the players put in on Thursday night, can you foresee changes?
Well, if he has the option to do so, I mean, if Rangers had got through, Derek, I think the next, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the next 2 games would have been before the Old Firm game and before a trip to Dingwall, maybe. So that would, whether Rangers had the players for that or not, I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, it's easy to say that in hindsight. Cantwell, I'd be probably surprised if he starts because he only played 20 minutes last night. Good to have him back. Roof, I don't know what you guys think, but I'd be inclined to just, as much as Roof would improve that team, I'd be inclined to just try and keep him throughout the rest of the season to make an impact in games, because
good point,
he can consistently do that. He can consistently do that without breaking down. You know how good a player he is for those, and he's a good sub. He knows how to come on and impact the game. Obviously, he couldn't do that last night. In an ideal world, you have options on the left, which maybe allows you to make a bit of a change up top. Maybe some fresh legs in the midfield as well. Nico Raskin came on for the final 5 minutes. Obviously, we've hardly seen anything of him. Ryan Jacks wasn't available last night. Ross McCausland, perhaps because he could have been involved last night. He maybe comes in on that right-hand side. You're right, though. It's a 12 o'clock kickoff, isn't it? After a late European night. You just need to,
times.
Yeah, you just need to win and take that momentum into the international break. And can it still be a memorable season for Rangers? Of course, because for all the frustration of how they went out against Benfica are still a Champions League side. They were the favourites for that tie. Rangers has been there punching above their weight. That has kind of become a normality in the Europa League that makes you think they can always go through ties. So a frustrating one last night, but so much to play for Rangers domestically. And now, realistically, Derek, they will have fresher legs for it, because it's not as if they had much in the way of options before last night, given all the injuries to the squad.
Yep, it's going to be a fascinating affair up there at Dens Park. As a comment came in, potentially Rangers will be a point behind. So the pressure, of course, of playing after Celtic will be ramped up. But you've got to trust that Rangers will go up there and get the job done. It's a venue, as Chris touched on, that they went up there and dispatched of Dundee with little fuss last time out. Even Sam Lammers scored up there. So Let's hope that Rangers can get the 3 points and move into that international break. Still top of the league. There's still plenty to look forward to, that's for sure, as the manager said. We'll wrap up there for today, folks. Huge thanks to both Joshua and to Chris for joining us on the show this morning, and to each and every one of you for interacting with the show as well. It's much appreciated. You can check out, incidentally, the press conferences on the YouTube channel, Philip Clement, as well as Roger Schmidt, and Joshua spoke to John Suter in the mix zone as well. So do go and check those out over on the YouTube channel, and plenty as well over on the Rangers Review website just now. Also, plenty of reaction from the game. If you've not subscribed, incidentally, to the website, we've got those two fantastic offers on: £4 for 4 months or £18 for an entire year. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe to sign up. Right, I'll be back again on Monday. Hopefully, we're reporting on a routine Rangers win against Dundee by then. If I don't speak to you then enjoy your weekend. Bye for now.